enjoyed the whole process. If I did have to pick one thing out, I guess it would be team cohesiveness at the very beginning. It was kind of odd. We started off with 4 original people in the class, and we realized that wasn't really enough. There were 2 physics majors and 2 engineering majors, so it's like it wasn't very balanced at all. And we're trying to start a company up. So we pulled in Rihanna and Hannah from the business side, and then we pulled in 2 more engineers. But some of them entered 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks into the semester, 3 weeks?
No, you can't. I think I started on like that Wednesday,
Okay.
and then other people started on like that Friday, and like we had to keep going over the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was something that was kind of odd about our semester, was that like with the bringing in new people, we had to make sure everyone was on the same page. There was some repeat there. And then as for meeting outside of class, I kind of wish we didn't really do that much until the end of the semester when we were putting the reports together. And I think that kind of lends itself to what we were doing. But I kind of wish earlier in the semester we were meeting outside of class in groups, smaller groups, more frequently, because we just kind of had a little task that we had to do, and we spread out and did them when we could be just like go into the library together, and we could all, each be doing our individual tasks, but we could still be bouncing ideas off of each other. That's something that we could have improved upon. But then by the end of the semester, when we're actually working on the projects and we've got our teams, I felt that worked pretty well with meeting outside of the class and building those relationships with the partners for the residentials, and then for the separate groups for the commercial job. I felt like by the end we kind of worked out how to work together outside of class, but it could have used some work at the beginning.
Yeah, because we had like a couple of things where we just like divided up the work, and everyone would like go and do it, and then we would come back and we'd be like, oh well, you know, this isn't cohesive, or we need to like redo all of this. So then we would spend class time redoing all of the work that we had done outside of class. And so I think definitely just like sitting down and like, this is our cohesive message. This is, you know, this is the font we're going to use for every single thing. Just like silly things like that you don't always think about. But those presentations, you are going to get very annoyed because someone's going to put a size 13 font when you used 12. And then you're going to have to go back and make sure that every single thing is correct.
Yeah, the cohesion is probably the most important part. I would say that you really need to get to know the people in your group as soon as possible. Like I think next semester it's a partially dry campus, partially wet campus, moist is what I've heard. So I would say that if you guys are 21, go grab a drink together or something, or at least a pizza if you're not. But getting to know the team members is the most important part, I think, and that's one of the biggest struggles at the beginning, is finding out if you have the right people on the right teams. I know that's something that our group struggled with. That's why we went through some of the seemingly, well, trying to find some value in the fuzzy beginning. We did personality tests in one of our class to kind of try to get the right people in the right groups, but you know, at the end of the day, it's mostly just luck. You need to, you know, get to know the people.
Have they done the Lynn Miller Pease session yet, or is that planned?
Yeah,
Okay.
did that last time. You guys remember that, the identifying your skills?
How
you were?
Yeah.
We probably weren't doing it when we were here.
I don't think we
What's
did that.
We probably weren't
we
doing
did
it
that.
yet.
We took an online thing, and I BS'd it, honestly. I just went through and checked all the boxes as quickly as I could because I didn't feel like doing it. So I would say I got lucky and my group worked out. Actually, I want to talk a little bit about the first semester of that class. So we started out in several teams for the A.O. Smith project, all kind of working towards the common goal, but we did completely separately. The hope was 3 or 4 different approaches might lend to finding different value. And what happened was one of the teams that only had 2 people ended up having a person drop the class, and we had to bring on that person onto our team. And this led to our initial run of our presentation being very choppy. We didn't have any time. He came on, I think, about a week, 2 weeks before the practice run. So basically what ended up happening is we all designed our portions of the PowerPoint, threw it together, we met, we presented this, and it was really, really bad. Honestly, it was the worst presentation out of the groups that did it, I believe. But after that, we focused on what each of us could bring value-wise. We had one person design and pull together the PowerPoint. We had one person actually present it on the actual presentation day. So we took our strongest speaker, she did that. One of us did the PowerPoint. We all just focused on what we knew we could do. And as an IT major, I don't have much experience in marketing, obviously, or market research, so it was interesting. But our final presentation was good. They ended up flying us out and stuff, and that was fun.
Good question. So the length of the presentation and the preparation before the presentation. So obviously you guys probably just need to get together and kind of practice it or get things more collaborated. What kind of time would you say would go into that? And then the length of your presentation, is there a guideline, say 15-minute presentation, 30-minute presentation? Is it just based on the knowledge and the scope of the project? What are we talking about here?
I think our presentation was between 15 and 20 minutes. Not enough work went into the dry run of the presentation. But I believe there were either a week and a half, 2 weeks between the two. And myself and one of the other members probably spent, this is not the untypical is probably typical, but atypical. We probably spent 15 to 20 hours outside of.
In those 2 weeks?
Yeah, honestly.
Wow.
It was, we scrambled. I think we were meeting almost every day, trying to get our presentation together. On the flip side, I was in the neuromarketing project. I believe we met the night before for one of our presentations in somebody's small dorm room apartment and kind of hammered it out, and it ended up going really well.
So then that also goes back to just the cohesion of the
Yes,
group.
yeah, definitely, and that was a good team. I think I was one of the only ones, again, without the necessary experience, so I told them I'd make the PowerPoint. Yeah, as far as, what was the other part of your question?
I pretty much nailed it. It's just, the presentation beforehand, all the preparation in it, looking back on it, correction of errors, would you say, we got the presentation coming up in this amount of time, should we set up some kind of guideline or, maybe schedule to make it a little bit more, I guess, easier to eat the elephant?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would say definitely at least trying to run through it once before you.
Yeah.
I guess most teams would, but.
I've been in presentations as well that have just been like, okay, so we'll those together the night before, stay up till like 3 o'clock, and then we'll just wing the presentation, and it was horrendous. So
it's even worse when a couple of people on the team are very confident in their BSing ability.
Oh yeah, then
and I personally always am.
The clients will call you on it, but that's why we now require the dress rehearsal. And again, this is all learning experience. We make changes to GAP every semester, so you have your final one already scheduled. Dress rehearsal is a week or two before that. I have to look at the schedule. But outside of that, those are the only two that we require. What I noticed last semester, and all the teams did a fantastic job, is that they did a lot more than that. So they practiced a lot prior to even their dress rehearsal, meeting outside of class, doing Sunday run-throughs. And we're going to go through that where it says practice schedule planning after Lori Smith's presentation. We're going to help you sketch out some of this. Think through what works for your team. How often do you need to get together? Where? We can help book rooms like this that have access to AV outside of hours, late at night, Sundays, Saturdays, whatever you need. So it's just part of it. I mean, when I have to give a presentation, I have to do it outside of work often too. So just kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
As for the length of the presentation, it just kind of depends on the scope of work. For the residential ones, it took us, the whole process probably took 30 minutes. The actual initial run-through took 10, 15, and then we just ended up talking 15 minutes afterwards about any follow-up questions and and small talk as well, because you need to build a relationship with the client as well. So 30 minutes total in that case. For the commercial one, I think our presentation was 25 minutes in length, 20, 25, something like that. A little bit longer. It's basically long enough to get the amount of detail in, but not too long that you bore them. So,
And, yeah, definitely on that, I know we walked into our presentation, I was pretty sure that 90% of the information we were going to tell them, they already knew. They have their own teams, they'd already looked at the project themselves, so I was focused on one way our team could bring them value. I figured if we could tell them one thing they didn't know before, that was going to be a big win, because, well, I figured they knew most everything. And so that's what I would say is definitely, if you can bring, I mean, as long as you're bringing value in your presentation, most people are not going to care how long it is. I would say that.
So how much research did you put in beforehand in that sense?
As far as the,
Like, who you're presenting to, that kind of stuff.
so we presented Deo Smith. We didn't know too much about them, honestly. Our contact person, we only spoke to him a few times, I believe. And we did find out that they're very number driven. One thing we focused on throughout the whole semester was having a very minimalistic look to the slides and the information we give, just kind of hit bullet points and focus on the big number, the one that matters. And what we found out when we got in there was they were asking about all the little numbers. They wanted to know how we got the big number. It's an engineering company. They were engineers. We approached it from more of a marketing business standpoint, and we were talking to engineers.
So then it's good to know who, the audience.
Yeah, you definitely need to know your audience.
I guess my question is more directed to you guys, but my concern isn't necessarily about the residential presentations at all. I feel like coming along pretty well with those, we know what we're going to be doing and talking about. But my concern is about the commercial client. How long did that take you to do that audit? Because we don't even have a contact yet.
The actual audit itself, we went one day during class and did like a tour of the facilities, and then came back and kind of all like had focused on things of our own. So the actual audit itself, I don't think took very long. What took probably the longest was getting Fire and Rain. I actually went and spoke to them at first, and it was kind of like early in the class, so like we still weren't really sure what we were trying to do and what we were looking for in a client. So when I went, and I just like went by myself, so I didn't really know what I was talking about.
Didn't you guys get your commercial client pretty late too?
Yeah, we did.
We probably got them.
And so when I actually had like talked with them maybe like the first week of February, and classes start in like middle of January, so I had no idea what I was talking about, and so we probably could have gotten our client a lot sooner, but since I wasn't armed with all of the facts and everything that we were looking for, what we had originally thought we wanted and what I was telling him what we were going to do was not something that they were interested in. And so afterwards, when we came back and we kind of like went over, what do we want to do? What do we want to get out of this project? What do we want our client to get out of this project? Then we went back and we were able to convince them that it was something that we would give them value. So it's really all just about adding value to your client. And then just going back to your question about the project and like actual presentation, here's a little helpful tip, because my class didn't know that we had to put together a written report until about 2 weeks before the actual presentation itself. So we were still putting together our presentation. Now we had to put together a full written report, and we still had finals work, other things, sleep. So you guys will probably most likely definitely have to put together a written report. So I would suggest doing that now, because I think it's something that a lot of groups always forget about. And so I think like we didn't do our written report until like the week of. And so just save yourself some stress and just kind of start like jotting things down now, because it is so annoying when you're still trying to worry about like your actual like presentation that, you know, because we always put like so much focus on the like presentation itself that we forget about the actual like written report. So don't do that. Don't procrastinate, which I know is really hard, and I feel like a hypocrite for saying that because I procrastinated everything in my entire life. So, I mean, like, I know Jill hated my group, probably, because it was the night before we were supposed to present to Berry Plastics, and we kept going, and we would, like, give her our paper, and we would fix everything that she told us to fix, and be like, okay, like, look at this, and she's like, okay, you fix all of that, but, and then she would give us a whole new list of things to fix. And then she told us that it just wasn't professional enough. And so it's like the night before our big presentation, and we were all freaking out. So that week leading up to the presentation, my group probably spent about 15 hours outside of the class, just putting the PowerPoint and everything together. It was also a little hard because my group had split up, like my class had split up into 2 different groups. And so there was part of the presentation that I, myself, and someone from their group both did, where we just kind of discussed like the background, like problem, and just like background information and things like that. And then we went into, because my group did household products and the other group did like food and beverage. So then we like split up into our own groups. So our presentation was very long. And then since there were 2 groups, we had a lot of people working on the same PowerPoint, which is what makes it look choppy and not cohesive. So that took even longer because we had set we didn't know that we were going to be doing one whole like long presentation. So we had just put something up together with just our group, and then we had to go back and reformat everything into their presentation. So it's just be prepared for a lot of like little things, like making sure that the logo is in the same bottom corner, like the same exact inch from every, like all the same margins, because it's annoying. But I mean, at the end, like our presentation went really, really well.
I think we've included it in your student manual, so they go up.
Yeah.
So I think obviously my biggest concern is the commercial client. At what point do we next even try to find a commercial client and just do residences? Because we know we have residential clients we can find. It took you guys that long. I don't want that necessarily to happen to us.
I mean, from what I was hearing is that like it sounds like you guys are working with Vectren on creating a partnership, maybe rather than focusing on a like commercial client, maybe focusing on building that relationship with Vectren, because that's something that I think our class could have done, but we just didn't have the time.
Well, it kind of sounds as if our group is possibly here to kind of structure the process. And, you know, as much as it's going to take with some of the like setting up reports, equations, and that kind of thing, we could definitely, you know, make progress in that sense. But, you know, getting a commercial client just doesn't seem, you know, feasible right now. But
it seems so. I mean, and that's part of the GAP process, is just you're relying upon businesses which just work on a different schedule basically than universities, and just see their daily lives differently than students. So there's that gap, but I still think like as long as you have a month at the end, month and a half.
Yeah, it's just hard because there's so many like breaks and stuff in like the first semester. You know, we have fall break coming up, and then there's a break for Thanksgiving, and then it's like finals. So I don't know, I'd say by like November 1st, if you don't have someone, maybe focus on how maybe you could present to Vectren on how, you know, working with the university would be beneficial to them, and maybe, you know, doing something like that. They have a lot of programs that they offer. I know you guys have probably like talked about that with them, If you get like a certain kind of thermostat, they'll give you a discount. Just things like that. So maybe using their programs and talking about how you can help implement those into your residential clients, and just kind of saying like, hey, we can help you if you want to like work with us. I don't know if that's something that your class would be interested in doing, but that's how I would maybe go with it if you don't have any like solid prospects right now for a commercial client.
And your professor, Dr. Reister and Joe Ellsworth will be on top of that. They'll know when there's a breaking point, when it's too
Yeah.
late to get a good commercial audit done. And then maybe focusing on presenting the veteran instead, an actual like client. Like, we would love to formalize this relationship, and here's our set of recommendations on how to do it. And here's the case for why and what it's done for other universities and other corporations that have done something like this. So they may push you in that direction, but I suspect they'll find a client. Joe's contacts are pretty good, so.
As for going back to the question about the presentation, knowing who you're presenting to is critical in my viewpoint, because we had multiple parties there. We had the GAP coaches and then also the GAP directors there. We had Vector in there, we had our client there, the later one. We also had to do 2 presentations. Our client couldn't make it to the presentation we set up, so be ready for anything. So we had to do the presentation again with a few less people.
Right.
So be prepared for anything, including your client not showing up to your presentation and telling you the day before. But knowing who you're presenting to is critical, because the client was coming from a business background, correct? And didn't care about the numbers all that much. He just wanted the big number, and we weren't supposed to get into details all that much. But then once we switched towards the end, we were addressing the future of the program, and then with Brad Ellsworth being there, we shifted the focus to him and looked and geared the presentation more towards him. So just depending on who you're presenting to and the parties present, you have to switch how you're presenting and the focus. Because the presentation isn't always just for one person. It can be for multiple parties, and even people within the same business. You could have the president of the company there who's just worried about the number side of things, then you could have the engineer there who's worried about the practical or the implementation side of things. And you have to be able to make sure you can address both sides or both concerns.
We have time for a few more. I'll throw one out there if there isn't one. Are there any certain things that you're very glad that you did? As you look back on your experience, you're like, wow, that worked really well. If we hadn't done that, X would have happened.
Personally, I would say the biggest thing as far as that goes is, so a lot of times in group projects in school, college, one of the big focuses is making sure everyone is doing an even amount of work. We ignored that pretty soon. We didn't try to do the same work. We didn't try to do the same amount of work. We focused on what we knew we would be best at. For instance, the written report, a lot of group projects I've been in, everyone's like, okay, well, you'll do this section, you can do these 2 sections. We didn't come at any of it like that. We focused on what we knew we could do. I was not strong in communications as far as writing and such. I decided I think I provided some bullet point information on some of the areas I thought I would do well in, and one of my other team members actually wrote it, made it fluffy. So I think focusing on really just value what we could do rather than focusing on splitting up the work, splitting up time. I would say that was the biggest thing for our team.
Yeah, kind of establishing value in the team members and saying where or how to make the difference there.
Exactly.
Definitely. I mean, the whole point of these GAP classes is that you're having people who come from all different backgrounds, all different majors. Everyone's going to have like their own set of skills. I was in a group of all boys. So being the only girl, I was the one who put all of our presentations together, because they would have just done like white backgrounds with like Comic Sans font. Like, not great, not beautiful. They didn't want to put pictures in. So that was something that like I had a stronger background in. And then some of like I was like working a lot, so they kind of had some more time. So they put more of their efforts into like more of the research that we had to do. So definitely just kind of like thinking about what your strengths are and what like the strengths of your team are. Definitely doing that. I am a strong public speaker, and so was one of the other students in my class, or in like my group. So him and I did all of the presentations. We also, like we did a lot of mini presentations like throughout, because we had people from Berry Plastics who came into our class all the time, and we were always going there. So we always were having to like give them updates and showing them like what we had done. So him and I were kind of good at like bullshitting things. So that's why we always talked, because we had like a foreign exchange student, and then we also had someone who just really got nervous in front of crowds. So him and I did all of the presentations. But yeah, I think just like really focusing in on, you know, who's good at what, and doing that would definitely be helpful. Also, don't be afraid to ask help from students who aren't in your class. We actually worked with like a Photoshop class here on campus, and they kind of brought some of our really poorly drawn sketches to life, which was really awesome. So I know that Berry Plastics really appreciated kind of having like those